What's up everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of Twin Stick Tuesday. In this episode, I'm looking at Ion Assault, which is developed by Coreplay. It's a bit of an odd one to include, as it has a few issues when played on PC, but despite its problems, I still have a blast with this twin stick, so let's jump on in. Ion Assault uses a unique particle system as its primary mechanic, which involves gathering up a number of particles that exist on each level and using them to destroy asteroids and enemies. But more on that later. First I want to talk about the downsides just to get them out of the way, but they're important enough to mention, so let's do it. Considering that this game was first released on Xbox Live Arcade, and that the Ion Assault website advertises it as an Xbox game and a PlayStation game, it really seems odd that the biggest issue I have with this game is its lackluster controller support. So on the PC version, the main menu can only be controlled by mouse and keyboard, as well as most of the other sub-menus. You can advance between levels using a gamepad, but you can't use a controller on the game over screen or the pause screen. The game is also split into two game modes, Campaign and Survival, and I've played through the campaign using a gamepad, but there are key features that are unavailable in Survival mode, namely an alternate fire that can be used with a mouse but isn't bound to anything on the controller layout, and the controller is not rebindable, at least not from within the game. And I'm not someone who likes to mess around with files to get a controller working. If it's not supported, it's not supported. This effectively makes survival mode unplayable, as the keyboard and mouse controls are pretty bad and it can be difficult to know where exactly you're aiming with the mouse, because instead of a reticle, you have a directional laser that points where you're aiming. This might not seem like a big thing, but when you're using a mouse, you not only have direction to think about, but also the distance of the mouse from the pivot point, i.e. your ship, as it creates odd movements when trying to shift your aim, as the direction will change faster or slower depending on how close your mouse is to the pivot point. However, the campaign mode is playable, and when you're actually in-game and in a level, it works fine on a controller and there's no real issues there. And it definitely is the preferred way to play over keyboard and mouse, if you're a twin stick player like I am, where I always use a controller for these sorts of games. So Ion Assault is not without its fair share of bad PC port problems. It seems odd that the biggest issue I have with this console game being ported to PC is the lack of gamepad support. But for some reason the problem exists, so be warned. However, if you can handle playing with a controller and occasionally reaching over for your mouse to click through some screens, you might just enjoy this game as much as I do, because the bulk of the gameplay is enjoyable and dynamic. Campaign mode is split into 4 sets of 5 levels, or 6 if you include the boss fights at the end of each one. The primary mechanic is gathering particles and then firing them around the level to destroy enemies and obstacles, which feels very different to playing a regular twin stick, as you hold down a trigger to suck particles in and then release it to fire them in whatever direction you're facing. The game looks pretty great, and the way that the particles move around the level and bounce off anything in their way can make for some fantastic visuals. And overall the graphics are very well put together, especially with the enemy boss design, but we'll look at that later. To progress through a level, you must destroy all the asteroids by bombarding them with charged particles that you gather. This part of the game is very reminiscent of the original Asteroids game. However, there's also a good variety of enemies to deal with that spawn while you play, based on how you play. The game uses a dynamic difficulty system that's based on how quickly you clear each level. The faster you go, the more enemies will spawn. It's possible to take your time and go as slow as you'd like, and clear the level without too many interruptions. But you can also amp it up and go for those multi-kills and score multipliers, and the game will throw more stuff at you for you to shoot. This system means that there are times when everything is slow and the pacing drops to a trickle, but before long you can have a screen full of obstacles and enemies to work through as you chase the power-up that will take them all out. Speaking of power-ups, there are a number of unique passive and active power-ups available to help you out, most of which utilise the particle system further to create some impressive and completely satisfying moments. Passive power-ups are activated as soon as you pick them up, while the active power-ups are triggered whenever you'd like to use them. There's one that boosts the radius of how many particles you can gather at once. There's one that creates a vortex of swirling particles around your ship, as well as stationary vortex grenades, drones that gather particles and seek out enemies. There's one that gives you a shield for a limited time, there's one that slows everything in the level down for a limited time, and I think that's about all. But the most fun I've had with Iron Assault has been with the 4 campaign mode boss fights. The bosses are fun and challenging to beat, and feature some brilliant design and scale. Each one has a number of stages, like any good boss fight, but the best thing is seeing how much you're chipping away at them as you try to take them down. For instance, on one boss you start out with a large asteroid and a little eye poking out, but as you chip away, it tears away the shell and you see the organism living inside. Some of the boss fights took me a long time to clear, but the game rewards persistence and practice with its impressive visuals and satisfying sense of achievement when you finally take down one of these monsters. And yes, there are leaderboards. Overall, if you want to play Iron Assault on the PC, it's a satisfying and unique shooter that offers some challenging and interesting gameplay along with some impressive visuals. But, in my opinion, the PC version is lacking significantly, as it doesn't have full controller support, leaving campaign mode as the only viable option available. So you're not going to get the entire package in this version. I do think that what the game offers is worth a look and worth playing, as it provides something a little bit different in the realm of arena twin-stick shooters, which in itself is a big accomplishment. And at the end of the day, I've had a lot of fun with this game, despite its issues, so I have no problem recommending it to you as something to check out when it's discounted. What you'll end up getting is a pretty neat experience, even as a cut down version of the game. I don't know what it's like on consoles, but I have to assume that the gamepads work in those versions, so if you have the option, it might be better to go play it on one of those instead. But it's definitely worth playing, as Iron Assault is an interesting twin stick that's worth a place along with the rest. So that's it for this episode. Check out my channel if you want to see more and stay in touch. There's links to everything in the description. Thanks for watching. Bye!